On Twitter, you can find him at Sean Sheehan BA.
Sean Sheehan of SevereMMA.com.
Somewhere, you know who's loving this? Sean Sheehan out there laughing, being like jiu-jitsu doesn't work in MMA. Man, we're really trying to get Sean Sheehan some jobs.
We just need to make them all sit down and watch Sean Sheehan's very clear and helpful explainer video. It's pinned on his goddamn Twitter profile.
I'll give a shout out to Sean Sheehan, who's an Irish MMA reporter.
Sean Sheehan on the line. Shout out Sean Sheehan, appreciate that, man. We made waves there.
It's great to see all the lads, Sean Sheehan and all the boys.
Great to meet you. You're a great voice for the sport, and big respect to my man.
Mr. Sean Sheehan is joining us all the way from Ireland.
That's it. Mr. Sean Sheehan is joining us all the way from Ireland today for the live stream Q&A. There's nothing to preview, I guess, today. So we're going to answer a shit ton of questions. Thanks to everyone over there in the Patreon for sending them in. You're all legends. If anyone else wants to join us and send in a question that's watching live, feel free to do so. We'll be with you for the next hour or so. We're going to rattle through all of these questions as best as we can today. As always, my name is Ian O'Neill, joining you from the mean streets of Saskatoon. As you can see behind me here, the Welsh wizard Harry Powell is joining us from London town, and Canada's favourite son, Spencer Kite, is joining us from Abbotsford, BC. And welcome to today's preview show, everybody. Shawnee, how are you doing, my friend? You know, I think let's not bury the lead here. Let's talk about how Bellator Dublin almost wiped out the core of SevereMMA. Sean and Graham struggling hard after that live event.
Yeah, I got a text from Graham saying he's had a headache for 11 days. That hasn't been great. Yeah, I was getting better, and now I'm still dying, but that's great. Also, that intro, I didn't realize it was a very Sean Sheehan heavy intro. Sure you didn't.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right.
I wouldn't do that. I would.
Sure.
I wouldn't. You wouldn't hear me doing that sort of thing now. But yeah, it's the Q&A anyway. Thanks for all joining me on the Q&A, lads. It's very good.
Yeah, you're going to try to come in here and take over. What's going on here? This is a Matt Town.
I'm the show. Let's be honest. I'm the show. Go on anyway.
How are you keeping? How are you keeping today, Spencer? I hope you're well.
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm doing better than Shawnee.
Yeah,
wouldn't be hard.
That's now the measuring stick. As long as I'm not the sickest one on the show, then I'm doing okay.
Yeah, I was like before. I said I was feeling a bit giddy, and I still am, and I was like feeling real happy. I could see like Sean saying, "Oh, but you ever fuck up?" And just I don't want to listen to how happy you are. I'm feeling like shite right now. But how are you, Harry? Yeah, easy now. I hope you're well today. Let's get into it. Look, we'll go to the one. Your good friend Spencer sent in a great question first, and Mikey Bats, Mike J Batista. He asks, UFC 280 will feature Aljamain Sterling and Manon Fiorot competing on a card that regionally makes little sense for them. Aljo should be making a title defense in New York at 281, and Manon ended up not fighting in the inaugural Paris card. Aside from health issues, how much of a promotional mishap is this by the UFC? Of course, you and I don't both are okay with it in the big picture, but sometimes, you know, same as when Usman and Edwards got booked in Utah, like we get it, but the moment could have been maximized in my opinion. Good question there from Mikey Bats. I guess I think there's been a lot of that happening lately. You know, questions on where fights are happening, who's fighting on what card, and you know, I guess that's maybe a business decision that's made behind the scenes. It's quite confusing to me sometimes where guys are fighting. What do you think of this one in particular? I'll go to you, Spencer, seeing as the question was directed towards you. What's your opinion on all of that?
I mean, the Manon Fiorot part, not fighting in Paris, is just unfortunate, right? Because she got hurt, I think, or the fight just, right? It was supposed to be Caitlin Chookagian, and then it was Jessica Andrade, and then it was Caitlin Chookagian again. And so it just constantly got moved. So that one sort of, you know, is just unfortunate timing in terms of injuries and things happening the way they did. I hadn't even thought, honestly, about Aljo fighting on this card and then New York being, you know, the week after. And so it's going to be, it's certainly really interesting that they've chosen to book this fight between Aljamain Sterling and TJ Dillashaw, 2 American guys, over in Abu Dhabi when New York is next, and Aljo is a Long Island guy. But I mean, as sort of the question asked, and as we've talked about, and as the lads are joking in the comments, this has been a thing we've seen. This has been sort of what we've seen happen, where the decisions haven't necessarily been the ones that make the most sense. And it's been a little bit, I don't know if it's rushed. I don't know if it's ill thought out. Like I said, the Fiorot one is injury and life happens. But the Aljo one, now that I think of it, and again, I hadn't thought of it, but now that I do, it's like, why isn't this guy fighting at Madison Square Garden? Why isn't he getting the opportunity to walk out at home to a champion's welcome at home? He doesn't have to be the main event. That's fine. He can still be the co-main event as he isn't on this card. So why not have him over there? I don't have an answer.
Harry has an answer.
I don't necessarily have an answer, but I do have a question that might provoke some thought. The question is, like, we know in the ESPN era that the UFC care more about ensuring that cards go ahead as a primary reasoning. But I wonder how much of the UFC's eyeballs have gone off creating the perfect live show since COVID, when they didn't really have to think about it. You know, like the Apex became the crux of the UFC's live show because it was the only place they could put fights on, right? How much of that do you think is almost like long COVID, right? Where the UFC are still suffering from those COVID-esque symptoms and they haven't yet rolled back into full swing of, okay, fighters can go in their local towns and we sell tickets and tickets are important. Like, do you think that has any effect at all? Or do you just think this is the UFC being the UFC?
I think some of it has to do with the deal that they struck over in Abu Dhabi as well. Whereas that with this deal, anytime they're bringing over the fight card over there, they have to kind of stack it up with the best fights in the division. The best division in the UFC right now is the bantamweight division. So technically speaking, you know, a fight at the top of that division for the title is going to go down very well. You know I for sure am looking forward to that fight with him and TJ Dillashaw. The same could be said about, you know, Islam Makhachev and Charlie Olives. Why don't you hold off and do that in Brazil? Well, you do that because, you know, Islam Makhachev caters to the Abu Dhabi audience over there, the same way as Perian does, and the same way as another few fighters do. Now, Aljo and TJ, they don't have really any allegiance, but it is a damn interesting fight, and on top of the best division in the UFC right now. Not that Ricky makes a very valid point that I remember him saying, but I don't know if it stands true right now. And he said he thought Aldo couldn't get medically cleared in New York. I believe there was an issue with that, but I'm not sure if it was cleared up or not. I'm not sure if that was with a brain scan or with his old neck injury that he couldn't get cleared in time. But yeah, it's definitely worth thinking. I know it makes a hell of a lot of sense for him to be fighting over there, but it makes a hell of a lot of sense for other fighters to be fighting in other places too. And it just simply hasn't been happening lately in the UFC. Lots and lots of questionable decisions, but it's all about that guaranteed money and the deals that they're making. They're making that money no matter what. So do they have to cater to the local audience? They have to do it somewhat. They'll always put a local fighter on a card, but you know, we're kind of missing out in these moments that we got with Jose Aldo back in the day in Rio de Janeiro, where he wins the fight and jumps into the audience. And I think that we're missing out from that kind of fan perspective or that experience as well with some of these decisions. But it was a great question. And I think we'll move on over to the Patreon questions. We're not going to answer, everyone won't answer all these. I'll direct these questions to different people, because if we all share our responses here, we'll be here for a fortnight. So we're going to bring up the Patreon. I'll scoot right up to the top. And the first couple of questions, as always, legend himself, Christopher Graham. Does he have any intro music, Sean?
There you go.
The legend himself, Christopher Graham. Any thoughts on the private Apex show for Mark Zuckerberg? I don't know about any of you guys, but I couldn't give two fucks about this or him being there or whatever it leads to. I mean, it was a shite card anyway, so he probably went on and watched one of the worst UFC cards of the year on his own, and just found it very weird. But he's just not your normal human being, is Mark Zuckerberg. He was invited by Dana White, so maybe that sets a bad precedent going forward for maybe some of the Apex cards where you're not including media and stuff like that. Does anybody have any random thoughts about this?
We discussed it in the Speaker's Corner. It'll be out next week. I don't think this is a big issue that anyone should give a shit about. The people who give a shit about this are the same people that break down Jake Paul fights every week. So this is like a symptom, I think, of what the UFC has become, maybe a little bit, which we'll speak about in the Speaker's Corner, that like this would never have happened before because the UFC were more for like the fans and the fan base, whereas now it's just this, it's just a financial endeavor entertainment company, and the word endeavor there is obviously an appropriate one, but just Dana White uses this company as his plaything a lot of the times as well. It's like, oh, well, if I ever went to the Met office, I would love if they, gave me a tour, and I'm going to go give him a tour of our office here, and like, fuck the media, fuck the fans and everything else. And that was it more than anything else. It wasn't surprising, really. It's just what the UFC is today. So yeah, it's not one that I think anyone should care too much about.
Yeah, indeed. Scott Coker announced a Bellator lightweight tournament for 2023. Which 8 fighters would you like to see in it? Give me the top 8 fighters in the rankings. Let's get the rankings up here real quick. So Patricky Pitbull is the champion. Usman Nurmagomedov number 2. Benson Henderson 3. Mosayev 4, but is ranked 3. Sydney Outlaw, Brent Primus, Alexander Shalaby, Islam Mamedov, AJ McKee, Peter Creeley, and Rag Badanov is the top 10 there. Any fights that you'd like to make there, Shawnee?
I don't think I'd like to see AJ McKee in it, to be honest. I'd rather AJ McKee go and fight at 145. Benson has said as well, he only has 3 fights left now as well.
That's like basically the entire tournament as well. But with these tournaments, you kind of get caught up as well into it, don't you? Over like 2 years nearly. Yeah. What about a bit of Eddie Alvarez back in there?
Yeah, I would mind. I think Queally be a great addition to the tournament. I know he's at number 9 now, so he's just outside of it, which is very unfortunate. But I think Queally, like Brent Primus, you can't put Brent Primus into the fucking tournament as well because he only fights like once every 4 years. Do you know what? These tournaments, Bellator, I really like their tournaments, but I think they need to pick maybe a little bit more intelligently who goes into them. And now, not saying they haven't, but I think making more action fights like Queally against a lot of those guys would be very fun. Any fights I'd like to see, Tawfiq Musayev, maybe people don't know him that well. He's a win over Patricky over in Rise, and this guy is a fucking
serious guy.
Any of them. Shabli, very good. Obviously, Usman is fighting Pitbull pretty soon, so there's lots of great fights. It's a very, very good division. I
personally think Musayev is going to be the Bellator champion within the next year, unless it'll probably be longer if they do this fucking this tournament, which will hold things up. But moving on to the next question, can you talk about the parallels? Christopher Graham asks. Cedric Doumbé and Bo Nickel, both masters of their craft outside of MMA, both insanely good on the mic, both super early in their MMA career. However, one was given 2 Contender Series bouts and will be pushed to the moon, whereas the other was cut because the French MMA Commission wouldn't let him fight in France and they didn't rebook him elsewhere. Thoughts, Harry?
I mean, Cedric Doumbé's French, isn't he? No, that's a joke. Anyway. Look, I think, look, there is a theory I have that is completely unproven, and I'm going to ask some fighters about it rather than just witter on myself about it. But I feel as though the UFC will market American fighters far easier and with far more willing than they will market a European fighter, unless their name is Conor McGregor or Paddy Pimblett or Darren Till, where the marketing just writes itself, right? You don't even need to do anything. You just need to import a video from somebody else's Twitter, bang it up on yours, and all of a sudden there's millions of views. And I think for Cedric Doumbé, it was more an unfortunate timing situation. We've obviously now seen UFC Paris with Cyril Gagné and, the rest of the cohort, right? So I think for Bo Nickel, the American audience, the North American audience, sort of the very Western audience understand what wrestling is. They know who Bo Nickel is. They know the accolades that he's won in the singlet. We know the accolades he's won, you know, because of the singlet. And I think for Cedric Doumbé, people don't appreciate kickboxing in the same way. You know, they don't appreciate, especially in North America, they don't appreciate kickboxing in the same way. Wrestling is bred into the sport. And I think Bo Nickel is somebody that's just far easier to market to the North American audience. And at the end of the day, that's what the UFC truly cares about, is the North American audience.
I think it's more the media than the UFC though. Like the American MMA media at the moment, they're treating Bo Nickel like he's fucking Erling Haaland. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. Like it's absolutely ridiculous. This guy could be stone fucking useless for all we know. He might be great. He might go on to be a UFC champion, but so might Sean O'Bannon or so might Cedric Doumbé. Just because he wrestled a few matches in college and, you know, beat a few 19-year-olds doesn't mean he's going to be a UFC champion. Let's be honest. There's no one at the moment who's an NCAA who's a UFC champion. So, you know.
Number one thing that I want to see right now, and no offense, Bo Nickel, but I want to see him getting caught clean and see how he reacts, because you know, he's not have had to face any adversity in an MMA standpoint. Faced plenty of adversity. I'm assuming in the wrestling side of things, but loads of questions to be answered still about Bo Nickel. Definitely a great prospect, but people talking about him fucking beating Israel Adesanya already is a bit mental to me, to be honest. But anyway, moving on. Moving on to question number 4 from Christopher Grant. Have you enjoyed the unofficial UFC offseason? No real noteworthy fights for the last 5 weeks in between 279 and 280. There's nothing else to add to that. You've just basically broken down the offseason perfectly. There was no real noteworthy fights and none really coming up until UFC 280. I enjoyed it. I didn't.
Corey Sandhagen and Song Yadong would beg to differ.
Yeah, well, I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. That was one of a few, shall we say then. But yeah, I've enjoyed it. I was kind of the last 2 kind of fight night events. I was kind of doing other things, and I enjoyed actually not watching them as well. So it's interesting to see, you know, what these fight nights will look like going forward. But I'm finding it very hard to get up for these fight night cards now. But I am really looking forward to UFC 280. So be interesting to see what happens on that one. Number 5 is Hamzat stuck in Russia? Could very well be. Anyone know? Anyone have a contact for Hamzat to let us know?
I was talking to him there last night. No, there was some report from Fanside or somewhere that said he was, and apparently he's not. So it should be grand, I'd say.
Has the lightweight rankings become the most talent rich from top to bottom? I would tend to disagree just with that. I'd say it's still the bantamweight division with the lightweight division coming up just behind as well. So I'd still reckon, like, the fucking amount of killers even outside the top 15 in the bantamweight division is crazy. That guy you did I can't remember his name, Harry, the severe spotlight, he's a bantamweight, wasn't he?
Sadiq Youssef was not a bantamweight, but I did it on Castaneda and Daniel Santos, who are both bantamweights.
Bantamweights, yeah. So I mean, even you look at that fight as well last Saturday night, and I did get the chance to see it. It was a great fucking fight. Like, and those 2 guys are unranked, relatively unknown.
Yeah, can we put some respect on middleweight as well, please?
No,
not a chance. Not in this one.
I think the problem with lightweight though is that the lads in lightweight are so good, they keep beating each other. And it's very hard for our puny little brains to compute what a good fighter actually is when he's lost to maybe 2 other fighters in the top 15, you know, but those 2 other fighters are also fucking brilliant. So I think lightweight actually probably looks worse than it is. There's some fantastic.
Oh no, I would not say that it's bad at all.
I know you're not saying that, but I think that is the problem with lightweight, where it's, you know, even in bantamweight, right? It's easier to go on like a 5, 6, 7 fight win streak and maybe get yourself to the top 10 or whatever. Whereas lightweight, I don't think that's necessarily even possible to win that many fights in a row.
Do you think though that, if I can just jump in there, do you think though that in bantamweight, and we see this more often with the guys as the fighters get smaller, the skill, the general level of skill in all areas rises, right? Do you think that the guys in lightweight, and this is an interesting question, is it easier I'm saying it's an interesting question before I even fucking ask it, right? That's not a great way to ask a question, is it? But the guys at bantamweight, because the skill level is so equal in some way, that if there is a slight edge of specialism, it really takes you up and over the edge. Whereas at lightweight, they all have their own specialisms, if that makes sense, and that makes it even more of a cutthroat division.
Yeah, I would say we did a speaker's corner about that as well. Like the specializations will become more of a difference maker when all else is equal. Like, whereas, you know, before it was the specialization won you something because no one else had anything. Now it's going to win you something because everyone else has everything. So yeah, I think that's a good point. It's different as well because there isn't as much of a threat maybe at the lower weight classes of finishes. So maybe it's easier to go on win streaks as well. Lightweight is kind of that fine base where they're not big enough to be shit, and you know, they're still big enough to get kind of knockouts and stuff. Now welterweight is good as well, as Harry said in the comment section, and middleweight is there where they're just rubbish. And you know, if anyone has a good skill set altogether, they'll just win everything.
Well, I never. Will there be no bad mouth in the middleweight division
Spencer's
here?
with me. Spencer did a whole podcast about
it. Yeah, bless you, Spencer, for trying to do that on your show.
I tried, but it didn't work.
Who headlines UFC 282? I'm almost certain that's Glover Teixeira versus Yuri Prochazka rematch. No,
is he?
Oh, that's what they're talking about. It hasn't been officially announced, but it feels like that's the logical choice. We'll see who ends up being sort of the co-main and what will be the second fight in there, whether they just basically do Singapore over again and get, you know, Valentina Shevchenko back in the mix to defend her title. Because that's really, I mean, heavyweight isn't happening. You look through some of the others, right? Strawweight is taking place the month before. We don't know what Amanda Nunes is doing in terms of the bantamweight division and defending that belt. So it feels like that's the logical choice, and it's going to just be a matter of, do they have one title fight or two?
Indeed, it'll be interesting to see. If it is Prochazka and Teixeira, that's a great fight. But yeah, like Spencer said, it's not unconfirmed yet. Pick one fighter each that you hope the UFC signs next year. Okay. I'll go with. It's not going to happen though. Does it have to be realistic, or can we just go with a wish?
Go a wish and a prayer. Go on.
I want Roberto Soldic in the UFC. I was absolutely devastated that they didn't pick him up. He would have been. He is the match that would have lit the flame in the middleweight division. He would have came in and he would have took heads home with him. And I think it's an awful shame that he's off fighting on one championship. But I look forward to seeing him there too. Hopefully he just kills everyone there and the UFC sign him late next year. Shawnee?
Let the other two lads go first. I'll go for it. Go on, Spencer, you go next.
I mean, the obvious one for me is Kayla Harrison. Like, let's just be done fucking about. Like, I know PFL just signed Aspen Ladd and Julia Budd's over there, and there are some fighters, but like, let's just get this done. There's only one fight I want to see for her. There's only one fight I want to see for Amanda Nunes anymore. It's them two against each other. So let's just get it done. Let's just make it happen.
Great answer, Harry.
I'm stealing Shawnee's.
Rug?
It's Rug.
I love it.
If I was to give, I'll let Shawnee have Rug.
No, you can have it. No, I have another one actually. Go on, you can have Rug.
All right, fine, no problem.
Yeah. Who's your other one there? Go on, for as a matter of interest.
Morgan Shahir.
Yeah, I'm going to go for another Cage Warriors 145. I'm going to go for Paul Hughes.
Yeah, Paul Hughes would be my second choice.
My other one would be Angela Lee. I'd love to see Angela Lee and see what she could do in there.
That was low key. You guys did the roundup. That Angela Lee fight was one of the fights of the year on ONE FC. Brilliant. If you haven't seen it, if anyone hasn't watched that fight back, head over to YouTube, watch that fight back. An absolute fucking war and a great fight between those. Her opponent was Sean
Jinyan Zhang.
There you go. Fair play. Well spoken like a true Chinaman.
If we could chuck like a fantasy name in the hat, could we see Roy Keane signed on a one-fight deal and just chuck him in there?
Who would you find him against?
Alfie Inge Haaland.
Oh, not just
rematch.
I can imagine Erling Haaland at middleweight. Erling Haaland would win the middleweight title before Bo Nickel. There's my shout.
Yeah. Harry, no surprise. Harry Kearns wants UFC to sign Palahan. Fair play to him.
Stop. Imagine the fun fights Palahan would have in the UFC.
Unreal fights. The man breeds action, so he does.
Do you know what I'd love to see Palahan one championship?
Imagine him fucking soccer kicking and kneeing grounded opponents.
He'd be doing that in front of the hillbillies every Saturday night anyway.
yeah. Oh, great reference there. Okay, moving on to the next.
You're muted, Ian.
You muted yourself there.
Second here now, trying to I definitely need to get myself another screen. Great question here from Christopher Graham. I put together a little MMA World Cup pool stages inspired by this year's groups. Talk through how the representatives would do at each other and advance in the round of 16. So group 1, Paddy Pimblett, Beneil Dariush, Dustin Poirier, Mason Jones. That's the group of death right there, almost in the lightweight division. Which one do you think progresses? Who will go through in second place? We'll go with Shawnee first.
We'll take a group each, so I'll go for this one. So Paddy would get beaten by all three of them, I think. Mason Jones would beat Paddy, but I think lose to the other two. And so then it'll probably come down to Poirier and Dariush. Who wins that fight now? That's a great fucking fight. I got my boy Benny. I go with Benny Dariush to get out of that one.
Controversial. Group D, France, Benoit Saint Denis, Australia, Jake Matthews, Denmark, Nicholas Dalby, and Tunisia, Mansour Lazez. Spencer, who do you have coming out of that one? It's a tight group.
I mean, there'd be some fun fights because my guy Benoit Saint Denis is in there, and he's just a wild man. He's just, I mean, you guys said about Palahan, action personified. Just loves the scrap. He's in there. I would have to pick Jake Matthews to come out just because of the all-around skill, because of the overall experience. Nicholas Dalby's a crafty old vet, but I think he's on the wrong side of 35 at this point, and it's been a long career, so I'd have to go with the Celtic Kid, Jake Matthews, to emerge from Group D.
The Celtic Kid, I love it. Do we claim him for that nickname? I'd say we do.
100%.
100%. We've claimed people for less. We've claimed. Give it to him, Sean. Give it to him.
Once again.
Return of the Mac. Go on, give me one more. That's a great tune. Love it. Harry, Brazil, Glover Teixeira, Serbia, Alexander Rakic, Switzerland, Vulcan, Ozdemir, Cameroon, Tafan, and Chikwi.
So I think the obvious pick is Teixeira, right? I think Rakic is sort of the dark horse. I think Rakic beats Ozdemir. I think Tafan and Chukwi probably loses to everyone other than Ozdemir because he's useless. And Teixeira probably has the boxing, the underrated wrestling, and the gamesmanship to beat all of them. So I'd say Teixeira makes it out of the group, and Rakic probably comes second.
Can I pick Rakic here because he watches everything I do? So my boy Alexander Rakic, I'm picking you here. Go on, Alexander.
No buoyancy. Biasy. Is that even a word? It is now.
Biases.
Daniel Mimna. Sorry, Daniel. Well, lads, how are you keeping? Well, a few questions for you. Who could be the next world champion from Ireland? In the big promotions, at least, is Carl Moore a mad shout? I was really impressed with his performance a few weeks ago. Jeez, I don't think that's a bad shout at all, given his last performance. He has a little bit of a ways to go, but he's definitely propelled himself into the top 10 in the division. There's a couple of more winnable fights ahead of him in that division after the rankings came out as well. So I think he's kind of primed up. I'd say he's really thrown his hat into the ring now to become the next world champion to come from Ireland. There's nobody else that's really there. You could look at Sean O'Bannon, maybe in Invicta, perhaps, but she's a ways away from that as well.
I think the most obvious answer here is if Chris Cyborg doesn't come back to Bellator, and you could have Sinead Kavanagh versus Liam McCourt, and you'd have an automatic one there. But other than that, yeah, I think Pedro Carvalho is not far away either. We have to put respect on the name of Pedro, but yeah, looking at that division, like Carl Moore, there aren't many lads there I picked to definitely 100% beat him. Like, I'd probably pick Nimkov and Anderson over him, but like he's a fucking animal of a fighter. What were you saying, Harry?
The only thing I was saying about the Invicta thing, as I said, in the big promotions, I mean, really, we're talking about Bellator and the UFC, right? Like, unless we're talking about Cage Warriors, and then world champ Cage Warriors, Paul Hughes, he's already got it. You know what I mean? But
you'll be speaking to the newest world champion that's coming from Ireland in next week, and that's Felipe Hercules. Is the Cage Legacy world champion now, so he is. So fair play to you, Harry. Is everybody getting a bit overexcited about Bo Nickel yet? Well, I do think it could probably beat some lads in the top 15. I'm not convinced he's going to be champ based on 3 fights. Only 4 D1 wrestlers have been champions in the UFC. I think we kind of answered that question already. I think everybody is getting a little bit excited. It's okay to get excited, but the levels of excitement right now is a bit crazy, if you ask me.
I'm gonna fact check that only 4 D1 wrestlers, because I think I can name 4 D1 wrestlers right now that have been UFC heavyweight champions.
Maybe NCAA champions he's talking about, possibly, isn't it?
Maybe NCAA national champions. But I mean,
let's do it. So Brock Lesnar.
Look, just off the top of my head, Cain Velasquez, Brock Lesnar, Mark Coleman, Randy Couture, Kevin Randleman was a D1 wrestler. He won a UFC title as well.
Dan
and that's
Severn.
That's just at heavyweight.
Were they all champions though?
Right. Yeah. All of those guys were champions.
Yeah. Daniel,
going through Daniel Cormier, obviously had 2 belts.
Was Cormier champion? I thought he lost everything, like he always does. I thought he was second place and everything.
Rashad Evans was a D1 wrestler. He won a title.
Yeah. Okay.
So the number is a little off. Chris Weidman was a D1 wrestler. So
a little bit factually incorrect.
Yeah, if it's winning a national championship, that's probably different.
Yeah,
that might be the correct number. Then I'm not sure, because I know Brock won 1, but whoever else I can't be sure.
We might not agree on the champions in the UFC, but we definitely agree with his initial statement, and that was people are getting a bit too excited over Bo Nickel right now. We'll move on to the next one.
Oh, hold on 1 second now. What do you think, Spencer? Do you think people are too excited, or do you think he'll be rocket ship to the top?
I don't think it's tough. I think there's reason to be excited. There's reason to be excited about this guy. To do what he did in the NCAA separates him from a lot of these guys that have come in that we've made a big deal about, right? We talk all the time about all of these NCAA wrestlers. He won 3 national championships. It's an amazing accomplishment. And I think he was in the finals of the 4th one. Like, he's a phenomenal wrestler. He is going into the division that we jokingly but rightfully just tear to pieces all the time. So the level of competition isn't necessarily as steep as going into bantamweight or lightweight or welterweight or any of those. And thus far, yes, it's been against middling competition, not great competition. But I mean, some of the stuff we've seen, regardless of who the competition is, the transitions in that second fight against Donovan Beard on the Contender Series are good transitions. The finish is a good finish. It's a good setup. And so if he's to steal Harry's term, bolting that stuff on already to go with great wrestling, to develop hands, he might be a contender in 3 years. He may wash out. He may not ever get there, but are we going to come back and apologize for, all the people that are saying now, way everybody's getting too excited. Like, people went fucking nuts about Chimaev and he ran through John Phillips. Like, so what's the difference here? Is it just that it's a North American guy and the North American audience is getting way too excited because finally they've got a guy?
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Fair enough. Okay. Listen,
I'm not
I'm in Canada. We haven't had anybody to get really excited about in a long, long time. So I just look at it and go like, yeah, we don't have anybody that's.
I think also it's an unfair comparison between Khamzat and Bo Nickel, because when you watch Bo Nickel and you watch Khamzat, like John Phillips, okay, he is not an elite fighter by any stretch of the imagination, but he's certainly at the time he was fighting Khamzat Chimaev was in higher regard than the opponents that Bo Nickel has been with now. Again, Khamzat Chimaev had fights outside the UFC before he came in and whatever. But I also think if you watch the way that those athletes moved and performed, the form with which they performed their techniques in, you can tell, and you could tell with Khamzat, and for the same reason you can tell with Bo Nickel, there is something there. There is a talent, there is a skill, there is a confidence, there is a level of athleticism there. So I don't think anyone is saying you shouldn't be excited by Bo Nickel. I don't think anyone is saying that we shouldn't be keeping an extremely close eye on him. I think where the metering is actually to steal our friendly neighborhood Spencer Man's line of reasoning, which is every fighter must be asked questions. And until we ask those questions, and if he answers all of them, grand. We'll put the posters on the wall just like Shawnee has, no problem. But I think that it's in reference to the validity of the UFC's talent base, and that's where the line of questioning comes in with Bo Nickel. To say he's going to go in there and just absolutely fucking ragdoll everyone sort of shines MMA in a bad light in some way. To think that your man, who's a supreme top of the food chain, A+++ athlete with a storied wrestling career, can come in with a very high percentage skill in one facet of a very multifaceted sport and just destroy a division. I think that's where the hubris comes from, rather than being excited about this prospect that comes into a very dead division.
100%.
So he's 3 fights in now. So he's 4 fights behind where Chimaev was when he beat John Phillips. So after let's say he gets his next 4 fights, he wins them all and he gets to 7-0, same as Hamzat is. Is it then justified? Because like people were talking about get this guy in. I mean, his 3rd fight, his 4th fight,
it will be just
Leon Edwards.
I think it will be just
like he's the next champion.
Justified is the wrong word. Sorry, Ian. Justified is the wrong word, right? Justified is the wrong word in that it's not a question of justification. It's a question of having a realistic expectation of a fighter. Not only is the reverence with people are holding in it now is too much pressure for Bo Nickel to be under, it's also a degradation to MMA. We should just match our excitement with what the fighter is allowing us to show. Like, I'm not shitting on Bo Nickel at all. The way I watched wrap up a fella like in a triangle was gorgeous. I'm down for it. I'm here to see it. I just want to see him in there with better guys that he's going to have to perform against. Sorry.
Yeah. And no, it's all good. And I'm excited to see him too, but I'm excited to go in and see what he's going to do against Jamie Pickett. I'm not even fucking thinking about him going in against Israel Adesanya yet, because it's massively too premature to be even talking about that. There's a long, long way to go. And given the recent history of what the UFC have been trying to do, and I wouldn't be completely ruling him out fighting in 4 fights or 5 fights time, fighting a top 5 guy, because the UFC are going to want to push that. And the most interesting thing that I'm interested to see is, there's a lot of interest there, is how hard he falls if he does fail. Because the same people who are trying to build him up right now will be the same people who will try and take him down when that happens. And it's going to be interesting to see how he deals with that too, because we're not dealing with an anomaly here where we're going to think that he's going to wipe the floor with everyone. He is going to be asked questions. He is going to have to find shit out about himself. How does he take a shot? How does he deal when he gasses out? How does he deal when he gets hurt? What does he do when someone defends a takedown? You know, those are all the major questions we should be asking ourselves now, not if he can beat Israel Adesanya. And, you know, it's just showing, like, you know, Israel Adesanya has had his fair share of criticism recently too, but it is a bit of a disrespect to be even talking about that right now, in my opinion, anyway.
Also, isn't Israel Adesanya win a recent fight against an Olympic silver medalist wrestler as well? It's like Bo Nickel hasn't reached that level, you know. It's not as if you know, the last guy Bo Nickel fought was barely a warm pulse, like he was so bad. That's not Israel Adesanya. I think Israel Adesanya is massively overrated. But he's not a mug. But I agree with what the lads are saying as well, what y'all said. I'm looking forward to seeing him prove it. Like, what I'm looking forward to, right, is seeing the next 4 fights and to see if he can get to a fight against Darren Till, right? That's what I'm looking forward to. And when you hear people saying, oh, he should be fighting Adesanya next and he could beat him, that's like, well, you're a fucking idiot. Like,
and what are we going to do then? We're going to have a fucking, if he goes in and does it, you're going to have a 3-0 fucking champion in the UFC. Yeah. And what does that say to the rest of the fucking roster as well?
It'd be cool, no doubt about it. But the people are just answering the wrong questions right now. And it's a weird thing that we have in MMA. And maybe it's because we see like the Irish fighters coming through and we love watching their rise. You know, as I say all the time.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because it was a point I was going to make, is that, you know, me, who's started to cover the sport recently, would look upon someone like you, and especially with the Owl Triangle podcast, we have to do it in the right way. But I feel, given off what yourself and Graham have been doing over the last few years, there's no one who has covered Irish fighters on a more fair and an even basis. And even at times, and you've said it yourself, Sean, being somewhat overcritical as well. And I think that's a much better, fairly overcritical. You have that, you can have that bias.
Tomorrow.
What's that?
Gary beat Bonicle tomorrow. No problem.
Yeah, well, I'd love to see that. I'd love to see that.
I'd love to see it as well. Ian Gary's beating a BJJ black belt. He's beating really good wrestlers. He's beating really good strikers. Let's see it. Anyway, we better move on. We could talk about Bonicle all night.
We could, yeah. He's been a good topic of conversation here. Anyway, let's move on. Where were we? Number 3 by Daniel. Can anyone please tell me why Darren Till is ranked at all? He has one win in middleweight, which was 3 years ago. I have one response to that, and Conor McGregor is still ranked in the lightweight division. So that's what the UFC do. They'll keep them in the rankings to keep them relevant. And, I think it's fair to say UFC would like somebody like Darren Till to win a couple of fights so they could put him in a title shot, so they could try and win him a title. But as we've seen, it's easier said than done. Anybody else have anything to add to that?
Wolf tickets.
Big time. Harry Kearns just adds, because Darren Till is an interesting personality that people care about, the rankings aren't purely based on merit. I can kind of agree with that. There's a level of entertainment attached to those rankings as well. Last question from Daniel, I think, just for the crack, match make a UFC Dublin card. Give us 5 quick main card fights there, Sean.
Oh God. Main event, Ian Gary versus Bonicle. Let's do it. Oh Jesus Christ! I'm just gonna pull up the rankings here and do it this way. Paul Hughes when he gets signed, and I'm gonna have him fight Alex Caceres.
No, Nathaniel Wood is the fight. Thank you. Move on.
Okay, yeah, well, I'll watch that. Who else Irish? Lee Hammond. I want him in there, and I'm gonna have him fight. Give me a good win 155er there, lads, in the UFC.
Ryan Hall's not gonna cut weight.
Paddy Pimblett.
Yeah. No, I go with Ryan Hall, so I'll have Paddy Pimblett as well, though, on the card, and I'll have him fight Joy Herbert in that, and then I will go with, do you know what? Stipe Miocic was supposed to fight in Ireland not too long ago. Let's go with a main event of Stipe Miocic. He's not going to fight John Jones. John Jones is going to fight Francis Ngannou. So Stipe Miocic
versus Rugrug in Rugrug's debut.
Tom Aspinall. There you go. That's actually that could happen. That's actually really apart from the Bonicle
Miocic was supposed to fight Ben Rothwell in one card, was it? Yeah, fell out. And that was the card that absolutely got destroyed when it turned into Dustin Poirier and Joe Duffy, and then that fight fell off as well.
I was drinking pints with Dustin Poirier until about 5 o'clock that morning, so it was all good.
I love it.
The last 3 people left drinking pints were me, Dustin Poirier, and Sean Shelby, and it was great fun.
Excellent. Many a good stories coming from those events. Moving on to Barry Kelly question. Great question. What is the highest ranked UFC fighter, if any, of the each can beat below? So number 1 is Rugrug. This has to go to you, Sean. What's the highest ranked fighter?
Okay, so I got the heavyweight rankings. Ngannou, no, I don't think you beat him. Ganya, no. Stipe, no. Curtis Blades? I'll say no. Tai Tuivasa, yeah, I think you beat Tai Tuivasa. So I got number 4, Tai Tuivasa.
Spencer, Bo Nickel.
All right, let me pull up. Middleweight. Middleweight.
Tony to read them out for you. Adesanya?
No. Whitaker, no. Cannonier, no. Vittori, probably not. Alex Pereira, maybe, just because of the foot boxing and the lack of wrestling. Derek Brunson?
Tough
Paulo Costa because of the wrestling? Sean Strickland because of the lack of wrestling. Darren Till because of the lack. This is the thing, right? Did you see him go out there and just out wrestle Darren Till? Yeah.
100%.
Right. And so we're talking maybe 5 or 6 right now. That's reason to be excited.
It is
with this fucking thing. We're all excited as well.
Yeah, go ahead. Fucking media. Isn't fucking North American media at it again? Fuck's sake. Over there. Go ahead with it.
Harry, Ian Gary.
Shawnee, you got the welterweight rankings for me, please?
I do. Leon Edwards. There, we might as well finish it there. Number 1.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Usman,
No.
Covington,
Absolutely not.
Shimaev,
No.
Burns,
No.
Bilal Muhammad,
No.
Jeff Neal,
No.
Wonderboy.
Yes.
You think you Wonderboy? Yeah.
At this point, any Wonderboy's career? Yeah. Yeah, I think so at this point.
Number 7.
Yeah, number 7.
Ian, you can do Brendan Loughnane. 145.
I'm looking at Max Holloway, probably not Yair, no Brian Ortega, no Josh Emmett,
No.
nah, Calvin Cater, no Arnold, no it's Korean Zombie.
I think he could beat Korean Zombie.
I think he'd probably give a good fight. Zombie would be a good stylistic matchup for him. I think Chika Chikadze would be a good stylistic matchup for him as well. I think he'd probably give Dan Ige a good rattle at number 11 right now. Alex Caceres at 15, definitely.
Smash the shit out of Caceres.
Yeah, Edson Barbosa. I think he'd give Barbosa a good rattle now as well. When Brendan Loughnane is on song, he's a difficult fighter to beat. But a couple of the topper ranked guys in the featherweight division, I'm not too sure about. Roberto Soldic, Sean, I'll give you a 2-pronged. That's the highest he could be at welterweight and at middleweight.
Okay, welterweight. Does he beat Leon Edwards? Yeah, I think he beat Leon Edwards. I go with the champion. And a middleweight, I think Adesanya is a tough fight from Whitaker's a tough fight. I think he beats Cannonier pretty handily. So number 2 there.
Cool, nice, love it. Fine. Last but not least, we'll go to Spencer for this one. Pitbull, Patricky Pitbull. How do you think he fares out in the featherweight division in the UFC?
I don't think he beats Volk. I don't think he beats Max. But other than that,
Volkanovski doesn't get fucking close.
But then other than that, there's some potential. He's terrific. Pitbull is one of those dudes that people just don't give enough credit to for what he's accomplished
100%.
And everybody he's beaten. Like he is fucking phenomenal. And so, yeah, number 2, number 3 in there. Like, I can certainly see him beating Yair Rodriguez and Brian Ortega.
Yeah,
and he'd be a good fight for Max Holloway at this point too.
Yeah, I'd love to see that.
It's just
fight.
Volk.
Yeah,
Volk's just a different level.
Yeah, indeed. Great question there by Barry. But this is Christopher Graham is back with the question that we all want to hear. Get the pound for pound number 1 cryptic name game champion Sean Sheehan is on the floor.
Leonenko, that's the first one. Cheers.
Harry comes in and rudes it. Okay, it's time for the fighter or the cryptic fighter name game. Christopher is going to give us. Or I'll direct this at you, Sean, because they always get directed at you, and I love seeing you struggle as well. I'll give you a cryptic clue, and you got to guess the name. Initials included: a hat with a soft brim in an indented crown, popular in the 40s with gangsters and jazz musicians, plus the first name of Earhart, famed female American aviator, and sounds reverberating in a cave.
I guess that's Federer Emelianenko, maybe.
Yeah, how you got that one?
What's the next one? So go on.
A song off what plus Horton hears a question mark.
It's Horton hears a who. So it's SR.
Oh, I know this one.
Song off what? Shotgun who? Shogun whoa.
Yes.
Shogun whoa,
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, you have to talk it through. Like you have to.
You do. Yeah, you have a good. Surname of REM lead singer plus a creamy dressing consisting of egg yolks beaten with oil and vinegar and a baby bird.
This one is genuinely fucking brilliant, by the way. This is so well done.
It's unreal.
I don't know your man's second name. Mayo anyway. Baby bird. What's a baby bird? Like a chick? Miocic? Stipe Miocic? Is that it?
Yeah, that was a great one. Well done to Christopher, as always there.
Michael Stipe, is it? Oh, yeah, okay.
That's great. That is great.
That last one is absolutely fucking brilliant.
That one is brilliant. Yeah, fair play to Christopher. Ooh, a great question in here from our guy Ben Cartilage. Cage Warriors turned 20 in July this year and have their first event in Italy this weekend. What is your favorite Cage Warriors fight?
Easy. Nathaniel Wood, Josh Reed.
Of all time. Yeah, that was a great fight. Unreal fight, yeah. Anyone stick out to you, Harry, over the last 20 years? It's crazy. 20 years.
20 to 20 years is too much to ask, Ben. You can't give me 20 years. Fucking hell. I mean, I was at Nathaniel Wood, Josh Reed. It was insane. Fuck, I don't know. That's too hard. I'll just. You can't ask me that on the spot. I'll come back with you.
Ben, if you're still watching, please, maybe you've had a front row seat to a lot of fights over the years. What has been your favorite fight, if you don't mind sharing with us?
Paddy Pimblett, Julian Arosa.
Oh my God, that's hilarious.
Oh no, well, that was a good fight, though. To be fair, there been lots of good fights in Cage.
Do you know, in recent memory, I think Reese McKee and Justin Burlinson. It was a great fight. That was just a mad fight, just had everything. And yeah,
Skabinski versus Burlinson was also crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some fantastic fights. And then in Italy this weekend, we've got another great card as well, live on UFC Fight Pass. Check it out over there. Lots of great fights. Ben got back to us. He says Owen Roddy and Wilson Reyes stands out from the last 10 years in judging Cage Warriors. That was a great fight.
That's there, funnily enough. Yeah, that was a great fight.
That's great. That's a great shout, Ben. Thanks for the question and for sharing your favorite fight as well. As we move on to the next one from Christopher Graham. All but one of the yes, I love these questions too. All but one of the names below are registered Sherdog fighters with at least one amateur or professional fight. Which one is made up? Shout out to Harry Kearns for the inspiration. So let's read a couple of these out. These are brilliant. So the first one is Hobum Park. Second one is Hazelnut. Third one is Willie Whipple, Lucas Fajman, Alexander Shitty,
I believe.
Shitty, yeah, I guess so. Sucky Deep Singh is the last one. So Sean, you're fucking representing Sherdog here, man. You should be primed up here now. Have all the names there. Which one, in your opinion, is the fake name? Which one is
Hold on. Hazelnut. No way.
There's no way. You're going to have to Google that, Sean. You're going to have to Google that.
No way. If Hazelnut's nickname would have to be, what's the name of that fucking spread?
Nutella.
Hazelnut Ella. Oh, come on. We look up Hazelnut. HZELNUTT. What's going to come up with Hazelnut? Hazelnut. No, that can't be right. Oh, there's no hazelnut in Sherdog. I think we got it. Yeah, I think we got it.
That was another. Oh man, those names are class. I must check out some of Willie Whipple's fights and see how he got along. That's a great question, Christopher, delivering the goods again as always. He asks again, Christopher Graham, these are my final remaining predictions for 2022 that have either not come true yet or been rendered impossible. What are your thoughts on the remaining possibilities? I'll ask one to each one of us here. Neither Connor, Jones or Jorge win a fight in the UFC in 2022. Sean, do you agree with that or disagree?
Connor, this stage is going to be touch and go. Who's Masvidal? Like whoever Masvidal's fight is probably going to lose. Is like the problem with it is how many pay-per-views are left? Like one or two this year?
Like two left.
3? No, but like that haven't already been matched. So we've 2 8. It's only one. Is Jones and Stipe going to be on that? Probably not. Connor, I think Connor probably would like to be back towards the end of the year, but I don't think they're going to have room for him. So I don't know about Masvidal. I would say no. I would say that's probably right. I don't think any of them probably win a fight. I don't think any of them fight between now and the end of the year, probably. So
Spencer, Henry Cejudo returns to the octagon and fights a current or former UFC champion. Agree or disagree?
I disagree. I mean, if I know he's talked about getting back in the pool and, you know, he's always bumping his gums about getting one of these big fights, but like they're not, because sort of the same thing as Shawnee's saying with his set there. They're not hustling that fight together for December. So this is still a good prediction that's going to get, I mean, this one isn't going to come true, but later, sort of early first half of 2023, maybe.
Yeah, I would agree with that as well. Harry, Andre Muniz will be ranked in the top 5 at some point in 2022.
Shawnee, have you got the middleweight rankings there? Can you tell me what he is now?
I have now. Well, I had him a second ago anyway. Yeah, I do. So right now he is ranked
number 10.
At number 10. Yeah.
No, move on.
There's not much time left. There's only 2 months.
Yeah, that's it. Like, he's not even matched up, and he's not even probably going to get an opportunity to get up there in the rankings as well. Stipe Miocic retires from MMA. I'm going to say that I will disagree with that. It's not going to happen in 2022. Shawnee, Dominic Cruz will fight either Jose Aldo or Frankie Edgar at some point in the year.
Maybe these are for 2023. So we'll look at it as if it's 2023. Yeah, I think Cruz versus Aldo, or Cruz versus Aldo makes sense, but Aldo's retired. But Cruz versus Edgar. Edgar wants one more fight. Well, I think the Cruz fight is probably a good fight for Frankie Edgar because he doesn't have a massive chance of getting knocked out cold. Although Frankie Edgar's brain is mushed this stage, unfortunately, because people wouldn't listen to me 3 years ago when I said he shouldn't be fighting anymore. So yeah, I could see that happening. Yeah.
Will it be Charles Jourdain versus Frankie Edgar next? Is that what they're going to do? They can do something horrendous like that.
I don't think that Charles Jourdain would warrant a matchup like that, given his recent record, to be honest. But maybe if he picks up a win or two here, they might look to try and get him back on track with a fight like that. Next one, who is it? Mareb Dashvili fights for the UFC bantamweight title. Let's say this is 2023 now, Spencer. Agree or disagree?
Yeah, if it's next year, if we're looking at it as these ones carry it, we let Christopher's predictions for this year carry over to next year. I can see it happening. Aljo's talked about vacating the belt if Merab's in line and he cuts a lot of weight to get down to 35. So I can see him moving up to 45 and Merab getting a shot. Sure.
100%. Harry Powell, Muhammad Ankalaev and Alexander Rakic compete against one another for a UFC Fight Night main event or a number 1 contenders bout. Agree or disagree?
I see that happening. I mean, if Ankalaev doesn't get the title shot and Rakic manages to pull off an impressive, stunning victory, whatever, when he comes back from injury, yeah, I can see that.
Guram Kutladze is ranked in the UFC lightweight top 8 at some point in 2023. Let me get the right lightweight rankings up here. Guram Kutladze is not even in the top 10. I'm going to in the top 8. I'm going to disagree with that. I think we might even see him come into the top 10, top 15 perhaps, but top 8, I don't know if he'll get enough action next year to kind of get him up there, to be honest. Number 20, at some point in 2022, Shawnee, there will be 0 male American champions in the UFC.
Okay, so we have a Brazilian flyweight. Aljamain might. Who's Aljamain fighting? TJ?
TJ, so it's
an American. But then Jan could come back in and win that. So maybe Volkanovski's going to stay champion there. At lightweight, there's 2 non-Americans fighting there. Leon Edwards, obviously non-American, but he would probably lose to Usman when they fight again. Izzy's going to lose to Bo Nichols, so there'll be an American there. Light heavyweight, there isn't really any Americans coming there. And then heavyweight, maybe John Jones. I would say no. I think there's enough Americans in with a chance. Is it a possibility? Absolutely. At the moment, there's only Aljo as a male American fighter. So if he loses
Jamaica.
Yeah. So, Leon Edwards does as well. So there's more Jamaican champions at the moment than there is American. So,
yeah, that's it. I think that's all the questions, unless I missed any. Is it? Yeah, I think we're done on for Patreon. I don't think we got any on Twitter, did we, lads?
I know they're very bad over on Twitter, them fuckers. The lads on Patreon are the best of them.
The Patreon lads are the bee's knees. I got a question for each one of you. Between now and the end of the year, Spencer, what's the fight that you're most looking forward to?
I mean, Oliveira Makhachev. Like, sign me up. I was waiting for this fight before it was officially announced. Like this was the one that when Charles beat Justin Gaethje and it was okay, who's he fight next? And he was talking about Conor and people were giving on about, oh yeah, the Conor fight makes sense and the money and all like that. Like, no, there's one fight that makes sense, and it's this one we get in 14 days or 15, whatever it is, 16 days. Sign me up. Let's go. Get here now. Give it to me. All of it. And I get it like mid-afternoon. Can't wait.
Yeah, that's an early card as well. Absolutely fantastic. I love it. Harry, without using that example, is there any other fights that you're really looking forward to?
Dustin Poirier, Michael Chandler. Give me that. Thanks.
That is going to be, a very good fight. Johnny, what are you looking forward to?
Julio Arce versus Montel Jackson. I think that's gonna do you know what I'm looking forward to? Perian versus Sean O'Malley. It's a very interesting fight. You know, it doesn't make the most sense right now. You know, is it the right matchmaking? Probably not, but fuck it if it isn't a telling fight. Fuck it if Sean O'Malley isn't a brave man. Like, Sean O'Malley has made me a fan by taking this. Like, I think Sean O'Malley's very cringe and like he's kind of like a wannabe TikToker, and I just don't like I don't think he's cool in any way, and I don't even think people who are cool in his way think he is cool, kind of. But god damn it, if this fight happens, and sometimes they don't, but if this fight happens, and if he goes in and wins, like, this is a rocket ship to the moon type of fight. This is what everyone is saying about Bo Nickel, what everyone is saying about, you know, their next guy. He can prove it all by going in here and beating Yan. And like, Yan, okay, he can go in and get back towards the title. But what a fight this is, isn't it? And like look at that card. Gamrot and Dariush after the fights we just talked about, the 2 title fights as well. It's brilliant. My guy, Kau Baharia, there's some great prospects at the moment. Like Makayev is on that card as well. It's like,
that's the thing. Like, that card is sick because there's just so many potential storylines that can come out of it. Like, lots of up and coming talent on it. And the main card is just ridiculous. Like, there's so many storylines that's going to come off that, and so many good matchups as well. And I definitely agree with you with Sean O'Malley. He's like, you know, he's going to prove. I'm excited to see how he goes in there and does, because he can still come out of this fight losing the result, but can come out looking like a winner, depending on how he performs. He cannot afford to buckle under the pressure. He cannot afford to kind of get injured and look at that's out of his control. But he's had a bad run of luck lately with eye pokes and injuries. I think if he goes in there and fights a competitive fight and loses against Peter Yan, that he'll still come out with that fight a winner. So it's definitely an exciting fight. I always love watching Peter Yan. My fight that I'm really looking forward to, that it's not technically before the end of the year, but it's one that was just announced this week, and that's the 4th fight between Brandon Moreno and Davison Figueiredo, which may be low-key one of the greatest quadrilogies, and the only one that we've seen in the UFC. But the trilogy that they've put on, ahead of this fight was unbelievable. One of the best trilogies that you'll ever watch when it comes to skills, excitement, and drama, etc. And they'll write the final chapter on that series in Brazil in January. And credit to Moreno. I guess, you know, Davison Figueiredo had to somewhat go into enemy territory to take the title from Moreno. Moreno's going to try and do the same as well in Brazil. I'm really looking forward to that. I love me some flyweights. I know you do as well.
Here, lads, I might have a bit of breaking news. Not necessarily, no, but I heard her. This is a rumor now, but I'm going to say it anyway. But it's a rumor that we've discussed already. But someone just sent me a text there and go, apparently Jones versus Stipe is very close to being made for UFC 282 in December.
Holy shit.
So no, that's not confirmed. I'm not reporting that as sources or anything there, but apparently it's very close to being made. So
what do we think of that?
Look forward to that.
That would be a great fight. And yeah, I have a longing to see John Jones back in there again. He's been out for far too long. I think the Stipe fight is a good entry into the heavyweight division for him. I think it's a very winnable fight for him. I think, you know, he is very egotistical in wanting to break records and wanting to beat the best guys. Well, he's going in there with the most decorated heavyweight champion that the UFC has seen so far. And I reckon he probably gets the job done against Stipe. What do you think, Spencer?
I mean, it's absolutely the right fight. In terms of Ngannou's still out, probably going to be another couple months before he's ready to go. It's the fight to make, to figure things out, to get things moving at the top of the division and see what's happening, and just to know what we have with each of these guys, right? Does Stipe have anything left? Does he want to keep doing this? Can he still compete at the highest level? John has been talking for years on end about all the things he's going to do. Well, come on and show us, big fella. Come and beat somebody that's done a lot of things in this division. It's the right fight. I not doubting Sean's sources, not doubting any of that stuff.
I am. I'm doubting myself.
I will believe it when I see it, because John Jones has been talking enough shit for the last bunch of years about all the guys he can beat and all the things he can do without putting pen to paper. And look, I know there's lots more that goes on behind it. But when I see the fight announcement, I'll let myself get excited.
Yeah, I genuinely think that Jones is ready. I think they've just, like we've probably talked about, they're having difficulties in finding him an opponent. They wanted to match him up with Francis Ngannou, but obviously that can't happen right now. I think Stipe is the next best option. Like, what do you lads think? Do you think that we've seen, like, obviously we have seen somewhat a drop off on his level of skills, and that always happens to all fighters, but I do feel that it's the lack of motivation has kind of caused John Jones not to perform still. Look, it's going to be hard to match some of the highs that he's had in his early career. I think the motivation of moving up against these bigger guys is going to I think we'll see a different Jones in action. I'm really excited to see him getting in there. How do you feel about it all, Harry?
So Shawnee and I did a Sherdog podcast ages ago about John Jones, and we talked about the mental side of this, and that John is somebody that's always wanted to be the bully. He always felt it necessary to be the bully. And I think one of the biggest questions I have is, what's he going to be like when he can't be the bully physically? Or it's less likely for him to be the bully physically. He's gone in and he looks like he's bulked up and done all of the things, and that's fine. But he's, in the last little while, changed his physique to be a heavyweight. Whereas a lot of these heavyweights have just been born heavyweights, right? And there's a very different strength when it's inherent to your physical stature as to when you're, let's be honest, probably banging roids and, getting to a position where you're now fitting in a 265 weight class. I think for Jones, the other questions I have are, yes, he was a supremely intelligent fighter. But you can't say is, because you don't know. You've not seen him in the last fucking God knows how long.
Well, but like we can say it based off his last fight. We know his fight IQ is through the roof. Like,
I think we have to say what
well, his fight IQ doesn't go anywhere. His ability to do what his body wants him to do or what his brain wants him to do, that goes. Like,
well, I mean, I even question that, because like how many MMA rounds is he doing? We don't know. We've not seen the tape. How much active live sparring? How where's his timing? Like, has he been thinking about MMA as much as he says he's been thinking about MMA? Is he still as invested in this? 4 years out or however long he's been out is a long time to be away from the game. Your life changes. You get comfy. Your kids grow up. Your wife grows older with you. Your body starts to change.
Not anymore.
Or she fucks off.
Yeah, she fucks off. Yeah.
Did that happen?
Yeah, she's gone.
Yeah. Fair fucking platter.
So like, I don't think we know what John Jones is going to walk in against Stipe Miocic if he does, and I think that's the intrigue of this fight for me. We kind of know who Stipe is at this point. He's still active enough. He's still training. He's still doing the thing. But with John Jones, it feels like an absolute unknown to me.
I've had COVID 3 times since John Jones last fought. Like
the whole pandemic has happened since John Jones last fought,
and it may move so quickly. And if his last 2 fights, right, felt like MMA had moved past him a bit. The way he performed. I know there's another 2 or 2.5 years after that.
I get what you're saying, Ian, about motivation, right? And it's listen, we talk about it all the time with champions. It's hard to get up every single time to face this next man up, the next man up, the next man up each time out. But if he didn't come out of that Thiago Santos fight where he nearly loses to a guy that's got blown out knees and go, Jesus, I'm slipping. I need to figure things out, because this kid that's coming, is tough and he's undefeated and he wants my belt. And then he goes out and has the performance where to this day, I'll still tell you that Dominic Reyes won that fight.
Yeah.
Then maybe the drive and maybe the focus and maybe we may be getting into the John Jones talks a better game than he can back up right now.
Why I would say with the motivation is based off like his experience in the UFC when he was a young man beating the who's who in the light heavyweight division, and then you're getting towards the later stages of your career, and no disrespect, you're going up against the likes of Thiago Santos and Dominic Reyes, whereas that you were beating Rashad Evans, you were beating Shogun Rua, you're beating all these killers. Like at the time when he won the championship and he was beating all these guys, the light heavyweight division was the best in the UFC and almost the best kind of weight class in the world. So I wonder, that's what I wonder. I wonder what his motivation was like, because motivation is a big factor in pushing yourself to the limit when you're training, when you're sparring, and ultimately when you're fighting. And yes, I agree. He was lucky in these last couple of fights. And I'm really intrigued to see if this, like, we're going to fucking find out against Stipe. That's the beautiful thing. We're going to find out. All these questions will be answered because, you know, even with Stipe in this late stage of his career, you can't go in and fuck around with him. I think John Jones honestly has much better fight IQ, and I feel that he'd be able to take him down if he wanted to. I feel he would be able to take him down. I feel that he'd be quicker and more nimble on the feet. I think that he'd just outstrike him from the outside, and that's my honest opinion on that. To be honest,
do you know what? One heavyweight fight though that we really look forward to at the end of the year. Fucking Mariusz Pudzianowski against Mamed Khalidov. What a fucking fight that is.
Oh my God. Unbelievable.
We might have to get a fucking lift from Sean Denny over to Poland for that one. That's going to be fucking unbelievable.
Yeah, that's going to be a great fight. Credit to them. That was the fight to make, and I didn't know whether it was going to happen, but they went out and they did it, and that's going to be absolutely epic. So it is. And that kind of rounds us up, I think, guys. With no more questions, no more talking points. Sean, you trying to come in here with a bit of breaking news, kind of unruffle a few feathers. And
what's that fight now? You better give me fucking credit, even though I'm not really reporting it because probably maybe not true, but you know, we'll throw it out there anyway. Why not? Fuck them.
We shall be back again next week to preview UFC's card. That is Vivian Araujo versus Alexa Grasso. That's a great fight, actually. So we'll be back next week, as always, Thursday, 8 p.m. for that preview show. Thanks, everybody, for sending in the questions over on Patreon. Thanks for everybody for sending in the questions on the live stream here. Do us a favor and head on over to All Real Nutrition. Enter the code word SevereMMA. You can see it along the bottom there. Enter the code word SevereMMA at eatallreal.com. Get yourself 15% off those delicious protein bars. Irish made, Irish created legends that run it there. Niall and everybody. Up there, right beside Spencer, is the barcode for our Patreon. Head on over there, hit the barcode, get yourself some top quality content. Speakers Corner, the Contender, the regular Q&A with Shawnee is there. What else do we have? Jason Pack, loads of things over there. The Owl Chat is in. Me and Shawnee do. Who else can go in there and do 10 minutes on fires, on open fires?
Fireplaces, no one.
Unreal. That is what you're going to get if you scan that barcode up in the top right corner. Thanks everybody once more for listening in. Follow all the lads. O'Neill MMA on Twitter, Instagram at Spencer Kite, at BJJ_Harry Powell, and at Sean Sheehan Bat on Twitter, Instagram, and the likes. We'll see you all next week again. Thanks everybody for the support. Hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, show us some support.